Welcome back to the Real Estate Girls Podcast. We're your hosts, Heather.
And I'm Kaci.
Whether you're buying, selling, or just obsessed with the market, we're here to bring you expert advice, behind the scenes stories, and a dose of realness.
So we have a great show lined up for you today. First, we're going to kick things off with a quick market recap. We want to talk about Bay County specifically, but we'll also, talk about the national stats when it pertains to real estate. Then we're going to answer a real estate question that is not commonly known. And then we'll end the podcast with a motivational quote to keep you motivated for the week. So, Heather, the big thing that we're talking about today is home inspections. This generally happens when a buyer goes under contract with a seller. They have a due diligence period, an inspection period. They will get their inspectors in there. The inspector will look over the house, provide a report with their findings. Are you seeing buyers request repairs, a lot more repairs now as opposed to maybe a year ago or 2 years ago, requesting repairs to the seller to fix the house?
Definitely. I think buyers have a lot more negotiating room in this market, and so we're seeing a lot more repair requests. Also, back whenever it was more of a seller's market, years ago, the home inspection periods were shorter. The due diligence periods where a buyer can do all their checks on the home. Right now, we're seeing it more average around 15 days. But way back when a buyer really needed to negotiate the contract, we were seeing it shorter, like 5-7 days. So that's also something where home inspectors, we needed a reliable home inspector who could get in there quick and take care of a home inspection, within that time frame. But definitely seeing a lot more repair requests in this market.
Yeah, I think when it was more of a balanced market, if I was navigating a buyer through this process, we would get a list. There's no such thing as a clean home inspection.
Right.
They're going to find something, but they get a list, and I say, listen, take the top 3-5 things that that are most important to you. Is it electrical? Is it roof? These are kind of like major things. And then let's request for the seller to handle those things.
Yeah.
I feel like in this market in particular, there's a lot of repair requests that I'm getting. We want it all fixed.
Yeah.
Are you seeing that?
I have had that.
Everything on the inspection report fixed. And I think that just shows the nature of the market.
Yeah,
And
truly.
Buyers are just super selective. So if this is the house that they want to proceed with, they want everything fixed. They don't want to have to, So that's something that I'm getting used to. And I think sellers are getting used to because they're like, oh, it's an as-is house.
Yeah.
But what they don't understand is, so an as-is basically you're buying it in its current condition. But
Right.
that doesn't mean that a buyer can't request for repairs
Right.
on an as-is house.
Right, exactly. The buyer can still request repairs, especially I think talking about going through that list and what we recommend to the buyer. And these are just recommendations, but if we as seasoned realtors notice something on the inspection that is going to be a clear insurance issue, say you have galvanized pipes, you don't have any of the toenails or the hurricane clips in the roof, say you can't get in the attic, just things like that are going to be an issue on the 4-point and wind mitt, older water heaters, stuff like that. You definitely want the buyer to put that at the top of their list of requests, because if the buyer can't get insurance, the buyer can't get a loan if they have a loan, and that kills the deal altogether. So it's better to negotiate those items within the due diligence period. If the seller is not willing to do it, submit the release and cancellation. There's other houses out there to choose from.
And I think if you do have a listing as a realtor, and the seller, which I feel like sellers are willing to do a lot right now, because they are getting more educated on how the market conditions are, and they just want to sell their house. But if you do have a seller that's kind of digging their toes in, hey, we're going to have to deal with this with the next buyer. You might as well get it fixed now. We're going to have to disclose this now.
Yes.
So, you hired me to sell your house. This is what it's going to take. And I think it's just being brutally honest with sellers.
Absolutely. Honest and pre-planning, and asking those pre-questions whenever we're listing it. Are you aware? So say manufactured or mobile home. Do you have the tie downs? Have you ever had an engineer report? How old is the roof? Is the roof permit closed out? To try and head off as much as you can in the beginning. But just saying, look, when the home inspection comes back, and just prime them for that situation, because sometimes sellers don't even know
They don't realize.
what issues are in their house
Mm-mm.
until the home inspection comes back.
I mean, and you get this a lot. Okay, this is my bottom line. Okay, well, if this is your bottom line, we need to be a little bit above that
Yeah,
because there's gonna be something that the buyer's gonna ask for. I
right.
guarantee you,
Yeah.
the buyer's gonna want to feel like they've gotten something. Oh, well, I gave them a $10,000, concession. Yes, but we are in a buyer's market,
Hmm.
and let's factor in a few grand just to,
And in
in the event
case,
we don't have any insulation in the attic.
yeah, a little buffer there.
So we do have around, we've talked about this. We're part of CPAR, which is Bay County, Holmes, Jackson, Liberty, and Washington. It's 6 counties, and we're right at almost 4,000. I know the other day we looked, we were over 4,000
Over
active listings.
4,000.
This
Yeah.
morning, I think we were just a tad under.
Hmm.
So some have been closed out. But we wanted to kind of talk about Bay County and specifically because that's where obviously a lot of our work is. That's where we live. Now, the total sales volume has declined by approximately 23.2% compared to the previous year, so suggesting a slowdown in the buyer activity. Well, absolutely. That's a quarter of a
Yeah.
quarter of the market's almost down.
It is,
So,
yeah, exactly. And that's compared to last year, and it was a little bit slower in a
mhm.
buyer's market last year. So, just keep that in mind.
And I
Projections.
get this question a lot. They're like, well, the interest rates were about the same last year than they are now. Like, what's the difference? The difference is there is an uneasiness
Mm-hmm.
going on with, we've got a new president, obviously, the uneasiness with economic conditions, with tariffs. And I think a lot of buyers are just hesitant, more hesitant this year than they were last year. And I think that's what it is. Obviously, inflation's come down a little bit, but it's still pretty high
It is high.
considering, and
Yeah.
people are looking at their monthly payment.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to, deal with this with sellers. I don't know about you, but personally, they'll say, "Well, we have $25,000 in upgrades in the house." At the end of the day, people are looking at that monthly payment.
Yeah.
So if this one has a backsplash, great, but we're going to go with a home across the street that's priced 30,000 less,
And affordable.
that doesn't have a backsplash, because guess what? Our payment is $400 a month less if we purchase this house.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I could stress that enough.
Absolutely. I think affordability is key. Kind of going into just the general makeup of, affordability and the market right now, I think people maybe last year people are using their savings
Mm-hmm.
to try and make up for the cost of living, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
They're having 2, 3 jobs, and affordability is key for buyers, and sellers need to keep that in mind. The more incentives, so closing costs you're able to offer, home warranties, ability to negotiate repairs, that's going to be key, and pricing it right. That's going to be key in selling the house, I think.
Absolutely. And buyers are thinking monthly payment, but they're thinking, okay, is this in an HOA? And okay, this is a big yard. Do I know how to cut a yard? Maybe not. Okay, now it's another $100 a month plus.
Right.
So all of these factors come in, and I think it scares buyers. And so at the end of the day, if they can get, especially in these like DR Horton communities with these resales, you got to be priced to sell. You got to be priced below the lowest active in there for that same floor plan
To
if you
compete.
want movement,
Yeah.
to be competitive.
Mm-hmm.
And so, right now what I'm seeing is like, okay, it might just be better to rent instead of sell, because they have a 3 month window. Well, we're at 95 days on the market. Is the
Yeah.
average days on market like your price, above what the median, what it's saying, what people can afford for this community? So it could take longer. So
Yeah.
you're having some serious conversations right now with sellers. Like, I never say, obviously I want to sell the house, but I also want to be honest with that seller. Like, realistically, are we going to put on the market and get 10 offers? Absolutely not.
Right.
Are we going to get 10 showings in the first week? Absolutely
Probably
not.
not.
Not unless you're 50,000 under what the home's worth.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. I think buyers are like counting every penny too. I have a listing on the market right now, and we've had some showings on it, but we just got an offer. And before we got that offer, I was in communication with the buyer's agent for weeks, sharing what the current
Mhm.
insurance
Mhm.
premium is, what documents we had as far as like engineer reports for tie downs. And eventually we did get an offer asking for basically the max that the buyer could get in closing costs. But the reason is because some of that they were going to use towards buying down the interest rate so that
Mm-hmm.
they could afford the monthly payment.
Mm-hmm.
And that was key for them, and making that offer, needing to know what that insurance premium is to make sure that that monthly payment wasn't going to be huge, plus buying down points and just making it work for their family situation. So,
Absolutely. I think, like, and I've spoken on this on previous podcasts. I feel like I'm working more now, putting in more effort and
yeah,
hours than I ever have been. I will say I've gotten 8 under contract in the last like 2 weeks.
congrats. That's amazing.
But what I've noticed when I was looking at the price range at that is very key, because a lot of those homes are in that $300,000 price range.
Yes.
I have one in the mid 255, I think we're at. I mean, I did have a condo. We got under contract. It was over half a million, but the brood of that was that 300, 350 and below,
Affordable
because
price
that's what
range.
people can afford.
Yeah.
And if you look at stats from especially our association, and you look at that median stat, 325,000 is, that's kind of, that's a good price range and a really good indication of what people can afford. So if
Yep.
you have a home that's over 400, 500, 600, it's going to be on the market a little bit
Yeah.
because you have less people that can afford it.
Right.
And now if you're on the beach, it's a strong buyer's market on the beach.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say, Heather?
Yeah, it's definitely a strong buyer's market. So the Panama City Beach buyer's market, with inventory levels ranging from 7.36 months to 8.61 months. And definitely the condo market facing challenges due to increased assessments and fees leading to decreased buyer interest, but also short-term property investments, so your short-term rentals, your
Mm-hmm.
VRBOs, not bringing the rental numbers that we saw in 2020 and 2021. I've got a couple condos listed right now. We're sharing the real numbers because that's what investors want to see, are the
Mm-hmm.
real numbers. As soon as we share those real numbers, because they're not renting like they were in 2020, 2021, as soon as we share those real numbers, crickets. I don't hear from
Absolutely.
from them anymore.
Especially if they're utilizing financing. Now, if
Yeah,
it's cash, okay, but they still want to see a return on that investment,
absolutely.
regardless if it's cash. But with lending, if you're at a 7% interest and you can't make the numbers work, if you're not making money on this investment, obviously you'll have appreciation. But we had Heinz on last week, and he said he thought he saw a declining market on the beach.
Yeah, yeah,
And yeah, I think obviously after COVID, those rental numbers just went up. Everyone was vacationing, and they're just not there anymore. They're not. They're in some homes in particular. You're seeing like a 50% decrease, and like they rented for 200, in 2020 or 2021, and now they're bringing in 100 gross rentals. So
right.
that affects their bottom line. And
Absolutely.
after you're obviously, we're very honest with our clients. After you're sharing this information with investors, they just run. They're
Yeah.
like, okay, not the right time.
Yep. Yep.
So, but it's a good opportunity for to get huge concessions. If a seller really needs to sell a condo, they're sick of paying these assessments. You can get a condo for a really good deal.
Yeah.
Um, so Lynn Haven is kind of doing really well. It generally remains in a seller's market. Obviously, Lynn Haven's very popular. You have inventories between 3.67 and 5.19 months. I know we talked about previously, anything under that 6 months of active inventory does constitute as a seller's market.
Hmm.
Um, the median sold prices have seen month over month increases, with Lynn Haven experiencing a notable 13.19% rise.
Yeah.
So location, location, location.
Yeah. Definitely location, location, location. So I think that's pretty notable. Actually, I had a property listed, went under contract in 10 days, which is amazing for this type of
Mm-hmm.
market. It was right in the heart of Lynn Haven.
Mm-hmm.
And the buyer, so talking about, we're seeing a lot of negotiations, a lot more contingencies with home sale
Mm-hmm.
contingencies. This was an interesting way the buyer of this property was able to purchase this property without having that home sale contingency. She took a HELOC out on her
Oh.
home, use that equity that she had to purchase this home, and now will, sell the home that she took the HELOC out on. And I kind of looked up this information before we came on, but you just have, some lenders, they will charge to pay off that HELOC, depending on how much you took, out of your home
You're talking about a
equity.
home equity line of
Home
credit.
equity line of credit, yes. But most of them don't. So you
Mm-hmm.
take out a HELOC on your property, you don't have that home sale contingency anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The agent wrote in the HELOC as the contingency, so her even being able to take out the HELOC on her existing home. But I thought that was a very interesting way to purchase a property without
Absolutely.
having the actual home sale contingency and the
Mm-hmm.
uncertainty of how
Mm-hmm.
soon the home you own as the buyer is going to sell.
Of the 8 that I got under contract, 3 have home sale
Oh my
contingencies.
goodness.
And they're tricky. I feel like that's the market that we're in. I
Yeah.
mean, you just have to make it work. But
Mhm.
you obviously don't go in it blind. You have to look at those homes that the buyer has to sell. Where are they priced? How
Yes.
many days on market? Like you have to do some research before you take that deal. But I'm seeing so much of that. Basically, a buyer has to sell their house in order to purchase your listing.
Mhm.
From your seller. I think it's definitely an interesting market, and it's just finding the right ways to navigate it and get
Absolutely.
through it,
Yeah.
without drowning.
Yeah, without drowning, and having the knowledge through experience is key, because that's so funny that you say that. When you have a home sale contingency as the listing agent, or an offer with a home sale contingency as the listing agent, you're running a CMA yourself to make sure
Yes,
that
is
that
priced
house
right.
is priced right,
Right.
doing the extra
You're
work.
filling it out. How many showings have you guys
Yeah.
had?
Yeah. What's the feedback?
So,
Yeah.
right. Because if that deal falls through, if that house doesn't sell, your deal falls through.
Exactly.
So you definitely have to get creative.
Yeah.
Homes sold below asking price. Approximately 69.5% of homes sold below their asking price. Again, because it's a buyer's market overall,
Mhm.
and homes are not selling for, and I can't stress this enough. Like people are like, we're going to get that. And most homeowners think that list price, they're going to get that.
Yeah.
I know we had that stat, it was like 95% of sellers believe when they list, they're going to get
That's
that
the price
price.
they're getting.
Well,
Yeah.
almost 70% of homes sold below their asking price.
Yeah.
So they're not selling at full price, and they're giving concessions. I have clients, well, we're offering concessions. I feel like every seller is willing to offer concessions for the most part. I mean, there's
Yeah.
some sellers that won't, but they, in the market that we're in, if you have a buyer and that house has been sitting on the market for months and not selling, and that buyer asks for closing cost assistance, more than likely the seller is going to want to make things work.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Definitely.
current mortgage rates in Bay County, a 30-year conventional is about 6.5. That's a little over what the or a little under what the national average is. The 30-year FHA is at 6%, 30-year VA 6%. Obviously, these rates are subject to change, and obviously are on a case-by-case basis. It depends on the individual, their credit, things like that.
Yeah, but that just gives you a baseline of what rates are looking like right now. National stats, 49% of, this is interesting, really interesting. 49% of realtors only did one transaction last year. So if a realtor sold 2 homes, that realtor is now in the top 50% of realtors. That is insane to me.
It is. Well, I think, there's a stereotype. Obviously, when I was a kid, and I don't know, maybe 10 or 12, I don't
Yeah.
know. I was a kid and I heard the term realtor. I thought unemployed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I really did.
Yeah.
I didn't understand what the whole process was. And I don't
Right.
think my husband understood I mean, he had a good idea,
Yeah.
but not until I got into it and he saw the amount of hours.
Right.
It's a 24/7 job for the full-time realtors. It
Yeah.
really is.
Whenever someone
Nonstop.
gets into real estate, I'm like, you can't even look at it you have to look at it as this is now your lifestyle. Real
Absolutely.
estate. That's it.
It's hard to cut off. I mean, you can go on vacations, but you're always working.
Yeah.
Right.
How many homes did you sell last year?
I think I had around 41 transactions, maybe actual
Holy.
homes 39.
So you're like the top 1%.
Well, so are you, girl. You sold just as many. So, and you have 17 listings now. So
Yeah.
that's a lot to navigate,
It
because
is.
you're navigating showings, you're navigating feedback, you're navigating a seller constantly asking you, why isn't your house selling? And you're reminding, oh, we just went on the market last week.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So that's a lot of different conversations that you have to kind of navigate.
It really is. And there's also that emotional side of it where you're
Mm-hmm.
getting calls at like 10, 11 o'clock
Mm-hmm.
at night,
Absolutely.
and they're just very emotional. They're
Mm-hmm.
worried, scared. And
Mm-hmm.
it's important, I think, as us as professionals to there's a way to navigate real estate if you have a professional by your side, a realtor by your
Mm-hmm.
side that knows what they're doing and can help you with, those key facts. Where in 2020, 2021, I know that a lot of people in our industry, they joke and they say that back then realtors were order takers. Okay, like let's not go that far, but it was a different market where things were moving quicker.
Mm-hmm.
Buyers did not have the negotiating power that they did.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, you're writing a contract without a ton of contingencies. You are still working back then,
Mm-hmm.
but now you're definitely working harder,
Absolutely.
and you have to have experience by your side, a realtor with experience by your side to help you navigate this
I had
market.
a conversation with a seller last night or the night before. They're all running together. It was 10 o'clock. We put the pause on our TV show, and they wanted to know about marketing and things like this, what I was doing to sell their listing. And at the end of the day, I just had to be brutally honest. Like, doesn't matter how much marketing you put into a property, if it's not priced right,
Oh,
it's
yes.
not going to move. You might attract them a buyer to that property, but they're gonna if across the street it's $30,000 or $40,000 less for the same house. I'm talking about these spec builds,
Hmm.
D.R. Horton, Adams, things like that. Same floor plan. You might get them to the house, but if they have an experienced realtor or they're gonna just see the sign of the neighboring property, they're gonna be like, what's wrong with this one? That
Yeah.
you're just drawing them into the neighborhood to sell them as essentially another house.
Yeah,
So I
exactly.
think having those tough conversations is really what's needed, and a lot of the times it's not what they want to hear.
Yeah.
It's really not. Hey, we priced it at this point, and based on the sales in the last 6 months or whatever we used. But guess what? It's a different market now,
Yeah.
and we have 25 active listings in the neighborhood, and none of them are moving. And you are priced above the lowest. Like, we need to be priced here. We need to offer concessions if you want this to move.
Right, right,
So
exactly.
you just have to continuously like navigate the process. And hey, this is what the market was 3 months ago or 6 months ago. It's different now.
Yeah.
So we have to, combat that with price reductions. And if you're not getting showings, it's the price.
It's always the price. You can market the crap out of a property, but buyers are not dumb. And that's the thing. In any smart human being, they're going to look at two products. One is this, one's
Mm-hmm.
20,000 less. They're the exact same, or they can make, the one that's less work, and it's more financially makes sense. They're going to go for the less priced home. And those tough conversations, us having that and just being brutally honest, I feel like is what our customers hire or
Mm-hmm.
our clients
Mm-hmm.
hire us for, is to have those tough conversations because they need guidance, and it's not always easy to navigate this market.
It's a lot of work. I mean, I have several listings. I have 14 or 15. I have 3 coming up.
Yeah.
Like, and every week I try to go through my listings and say, okay, what happened this week? Did we
Hmm.
have any activity? What new homes were listed in this neighborhood? Where did we? And if we're not getting showings, if we're kind of well above, as far as what the market says, the days on market, then we need to reduce the price.
Yeah.
Like, and I push for those price adjustments
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, I'm trying to get as much for the house, obviously, for that client, but days on market matter,
Yeah.
right?
But zero is zero if it doesn't sell. So you
Exactly.
don't get that.
Nobody wins.
Yeah.
Nobody wins in that scenario. And we don't want to be 200 days on the market. And now, okay, finally, now a buyer's going to look at that 200 days on market and think that they can get 30,000 off the
And
price.
yeah, offer
So
way less than.
I thought this was an interesting stat. The U.S. housing market has experienced a significant shift, with home sellers outnumbering buyers by approximately 490,041.
Mm-hmm.
Almost a 500,000 more sellers than buyers.
Yeah.
That's on national stat. And
And
yeah, this is the largest gap recorded since tracking began in 2013. So buyers need to be aware of this.
mm-hmm.
There's a 35% surplus of sellers compared to buyers.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and pending sales were down 6.3% in April compared to March and down 2.5% year over year, according to NAR. That's a National Association of Realtors.
So there's been discussion lately about privatizing Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, which could create more risk because of the loss of government guarantees. This refers to shifting these two government-sponsored enterprises from government-controlled back to private ownership and operation. This would reduce and eliminate direct government oversight. They would just means that they would operate more like private companies, taking on more financial risk without government backing. It could potentially lead to changes in how they support mortgage lending.
Yeah, I see the good and the bad in
Mm-hmm.
that. The bad, obviously, potentially being higher interest rates
Mm-hmm.
because there's more risk
Mm-hmm.
now because they're not government backed. But also, maybe the good is not as strict or stringent. Um, condition requirements,
Mm-hmm.
so structural requirements, but sometimes having those conditional requirements when you're purchasing, government-backed loans is a good thing because you have that extra check from an appraiser going in and saying, this does not meet,
Requirements.
yeah, this is not structurally sound.
Yeah, so it'll be
So,
interesting to see what happens
mhm.
there. So Heather, can you explain the difference between an opportunity zone? What and we'll go into 1031 as well, but
Yeah.
what is an opportunity zone?
Okay, so an opportunity zones are economic development tools that allow people to invest in distressed or rural areas in the United States. Their purpose is to spur economic growth and job creation in low income communities while providing tax benefits to investors. So part of an area of Panama City, the heart of Panama City, Glenwood, and a bit down Harrison Avenue is zoned an opportunity zone. The way you can find this is nationally there is there is an opportunity zone map. But for Panama City to see our local opportunity zoned area, you can go to the Panama City GIS map, click on the overlay in the side bracket, and you can click on opportunity zone. It'll show you exactly where it's at. Now, if you're an investor and you're looking to invest in an opportunity zone, um, it has a tax benefit of investing in opportunity zones means you can defer and potentially reduce capital gains taxes if you hold the investment for a particular amount of time. You can actually completely remove your capital gains tax if it's over 10 years and you hold that real estate, which is an amazing benefit for investors. Um, and it's amazing for the community as well because
Absolutely.
it brings up the community.
You're
Um,
revitalizing
you're
the community. Mm-hmm.
revitalizing, and there's another side of it where you can reduce your capital gains if you purchase real estate and you put money into the opportunity zone fund and you redo or revitalize that real estate property that you're investing in significantly. I think that you have to do it like 2 times the amount that you invest into that fund. You sell that property within 5 to 7 years. I want to say it's like 90%. You can reduce the capital gains tax, and then there's a step up at 7 years. You reduce the capital gains tax by 85%. So you're only paying 85% capital gains tax on that property. But for homeowners that live in Glenwood,
Mm-hmm.
Panama City, those
Mm-hmm.
opportunity zones, if you have a property in that area and you have investors coming in, they're investing in real estate, they're revitalizing the area, they're helping you increase your equity in your home. And that creates, in just long term, generational wealth. It helps
Absolutely.
revitalize the community. It's just an
And
amazing thing.
the investors get the tax advantage. It's kind
Hmm.
of a two-pronged, like, it's great for the residents and the community, and it's also great for investors.
Yeah.
I remember when we were in high school, if you went down Harrison, it was like ghost town. Do you
Yes.
remember this?
Hmm.
Like, we didn't go down there.
Yeah.
I went for my birthday. I met some friends of mine at Ferrucci's because
Hmm.
you mentioned that that was a good
It's my
restaurant.
favorite.
Love my carbs. I could not find a parking spot.
Yeah.
I had to walk like a long ways to get to the restaurant. I was like, what is going down downtown Harrison? Because obviously we have a toddler, like we're not out late ever,
Right.
unless it's like a special occasion. And I was just like, wow, this is amazing how this area, Harrison Avenue in particular has just built up
Yeah.
just since 2006. So the last 20 years,
Yeah.
it's come so far.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
it's good to note that like after 10 years, your capital gains could be eliminated, which
10
is
years. It's not a long time,
no, I
really,
mean,
if you
as long
think
as
about it.
legislation doesn't change, I mean, it's
Right.
great. But this is different from a 1031 where you're deferring that tax, correct? I mean, it doesn't
Correct.
really go away.
Yeah, 1031, you're just taking the equity. So, say you have an investment property, you sell that property,
Hmm.
you are taking that equity, you're moving it into 1031 exchange where it's held for a certain amount of time with intermediary,
Hmm.
and then you take that equity and you put it in a new prop. So, really, what you're doing is you're kicking the can. But with the opportunity zone, you have the potential to completely eliminate having to pay that capital
Hmm.
gains tax or, in a different scenario, reducing it.
I
So,
think savvy investors really know the difference. And I mean, they're both great to utilize. With a 1031, you have 45 days to identify a property,
mhm.
and then you have 180 days to reinvest. And just to give you a quick example, I had an investor, actually a good friend of mine. It was a beach house, a single family beach house that came on the market around 1.5 million. It was over 3,000 square foot. And when it came on the market, I was like, if we don't buy this, we're going to have 10 offers on it. And I was like, if you buy basically, I didn't want the competition. So I was like, we better put an offer in right
Yeah,
away. But I said, if you buy this in a year, it'll be worth a million more, which actually I felt like it was way underpriced. I don't know if it appreciated a million in a year. It was just a matter of it was
yeah,
underpriced. But it'll be worth 2.5 next year. And so he jumped on it. It was a crazy deal. We ended up closing in like a week, less than a week. I don't think I slept for 3 days. But we secured the deal a year and 3 months later. I put it back on the market for 2.5 around there. I think it was like 2.45. We got a full asking
oh,
price
wow,
during the coming soon status. So it
wow,
was signed unseen.
nice,
And so in that example, that investor had, I mean, obviously there's closing costs and things like that, but they had $1 million gain. So in the tax bracket that they were in, they were going to have to pay, and everybody's tax bracket is different. If you're
mhm.
married, single, whatever, there's rules, talk to your accountant. But he was going to pay 15 or 20% capital gains tax on that $1 million gain.
Yeah,
So we're talking like 150, $200,000.
right,
Okay. So what he decided to do is do a 1031. It was held with that intermediator in an escrow account. And basically he identified another property. It has to be a similar property. It can't be a property that he's going to live as a primary residence. It
right,
has to be an investment, something similar cost. You can't sell a $2.5 million beach house and then invest in a $300,000 beach house. The numbers just don't work that
right.
way. So he reinvested. He bought a $3 million beach house and avoiding the capital gains there. And it's just a way to build that wealth through real estate. And
Really.
savvy investors will continue to do this over and over again. As long as you don't sell and as long as you reinvest, you're not paying those gains.
Yeah, there's
So,
definitely some tax benefits in real estate. We are not accountants, so
right.
definitely consult your
Absolutely.
tax account. We're just realtors who know this information and kind of want to put you on some pretty savvy ways
And we've
to
worked with
build wealth.
lawyers that can do this, the 1031
Yes,
that do this all the time. And I think it is good that we have this background because especially investors just starting out, they might not be aware of this.
right,
So hey, here's a lawyer that we work with all the time that does these, consult with them. In this case, that particular buyer had it because they've been doing this, multiple times. So they had somebody that they can consult. But that was a whirlwind year. And we got it done. And, obviously he walked away making $1 million
that's
in
awesome.
1 year, well, a year and 3 months. So,
Yeah, good for you,
yeah.
Casey. Good for you.
Okay, so every episode we like to answer a real estate question that is not commonly known. Heather, can a home technically fail an inspection?
No, a home cannot technically fail an inspection. A home inspection is the home inspector um, basically inspecting the home and laying out all the facts for the buyer to make the decision on whether they want to move forward with purchasing the home or not purchasing the property. Obviously, your realtor will kind of guide you in the right direction on what they see as hurdles coming up, like we talked about before with, what's going to be an issue with insurance, what might be an issue with an appraisal. But a home cannot fail or pass an inspection. It's just knowledge for the buyer to have.
And here's another one we get all the time. Is a brand new construction home always clean on the inspection report?
No, it's not. I had one brand new construction where I don't know what happened. The plumber left a balloon on one of the plumbing pipes in the wall, and they ran the plumbing and it busted and
Oh my
completely
gosh.
flooded that part of the house. Obviously, it was in the wall. The home inspector who inspected the property, they didn't know about it, but that's just an example where even when it is new construction, there can be issues with the
Absolutely.
property, and it's important to do the checks.
The biggest piece of advice, pay the
Yes.
$500, whatever it is. It it's going to save you money in the long
Yeah.
run. I had a new construction. Actually, Corey, our guest, he was on the roof and he almost fell through the roof because they had, which I'm not an expert in this area, but they had roofed over the vent that we're supposed to vent. So if he wouldn't have stepped there, he would have fell through the roof, but he could kind of see what they had done.
Hmm.
This is new construction. There was no
Oh,
ventilation.
wow.
And luckily, he didn't fall through the roof. But I mean, things happen. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes, things get missed,
Yeah.
and the home could look and smell that beautiful smell of fresh paint
Yeah.
and new
New
construction
construction.
smell. And, you get caught up in it. But um, as Corey, said, they're going to find something.
Yeah.
And so it's worth the money
Yeah.
because I guarantee what he finds is more than the $500 or whatever you pay him.
Exactly.
I know that, the fees are, basically different on the size of the house and things
Yeah.
like that. But get your home inspection done.
Yeah.
Get a WDO, which is a termite wood rot inspection. Get it done. Have a termite bond on the house.
Hmm.
Do all the things.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Today's motivational quote is from Benjamin Franklin. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Benjamin Franklin said this. This timeless advice couldn't be more relevant when it comes to real estate. A thorough home inspection before you buy can uncover hidden issues early, like we said, saving you from major expenses and headaches down the road. It's all about protecting your investment before problems arise. Thank you so much for joining us on
Thank
today's
you.
episode of the Real Estate Girls, where real estate meets real talk. It's real advice, real insights. We are the Real Estate Girls. If you like this, please drop a comment. Tell us what you liked, what you would like to see on future episodes.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next
We'll see you
time.
next time. Thanks.